Hey, Adam.
Hello.
So we're early.
Mm-hmm. Did we line up any more presentations?
We have one from Darden today,
Okay.
and then Thursdays is open. Why do you ask? You already did yours, didn't you?
Yeah, I was just wondering because I found them fascinating so far.
Well, I appreciate hearing that. Yeah, I did too. I did too. Yeah, we have one on literature today, and then Maya said she was going to be probably ready by Thursday or next Tuesday. Wait, no, next Tuesday is a break. Incidentally, yeah, next Tuesday is our spring break.
Are we gonna have a take-home quiz over that?
Gosh, for Thursday, I was going to give you a short verbal sentence parsing just because there are little glitches that remain. Most people have a good grasp of it, but so that's going to be Thursday to Sunday, and then for Sunday, I was just, I'm going to have to think of something. Was the take-home quiz, did it force you to study last time? Was it useful, in other words, to learn material, or no? Was it a waste of time?
I don't think it was a waste of time because it caused me to go back and review some stuff.
Well, I mean, if that's the case, then I'm going to push really hard for a take home quiz because
I'm fine with that.
because the idea would be for you guys to to keep the stuff as current as possible because a lot of it you'll forget over the summer and then it's going to be painful trying to remember it. Yeah, so the more problem sets, the more homework sets you've done and the more quizzes and the thicker your binder is, I think the better off you are.
And then I know it's probably different because different schools have different dates that their grades and comments are due.
Yeah.
But like I think my school's grades and comments are coming out like this Friday. So will my Arabic grade be included in there?
No, your Arabic grade is going to be based on the Malone system. Now, if
Like they include that with my transcript and my report card, or at least they did last couple semesters.
Could you do me a favor? I mean, well, what happened last semester? Because our last week is the first week of May, and then grades aren't due for another 2 weeks after that. So this is a job for Stephanie Zobey. She's the person who could answer this. Now, the $1 million.
Because
Do you want to contact her, or would you like me to contact her?
I don't really mind either way because the last two quarters, when it was the different teacher, I just like my grade for Arabic was just with my regular report card.
Could you mind asking Stephanie? Because if I have to do something extra, then I just need to know. I'd really appreciate it.
Yep.
Thanks, Adam. And we have Pippa. أهلا وسهلا يا Pippa.
Hi.
Hi, كيف الحال? How are you?
Alhamdulillah.
الحمد لله. أنت كويسة؟ أنت جيدة؟
Mm.
جميل، جميل جدا. I should share my screen just to make sure that this thing is working. So,
Is this about Adam's grades for? Because
yes, it was. That was our discussion. Yes.
I know some schools, like my school, decided not to put it on. Like, we're on a trimester system, and so they didn't put it on. Like they had my grade or something, but they just were like, we're not including it in this. Like marking. I'm not sure how it works, but I think it's at the school's discretion.
Okay, but then at some point the registrar is going to get your grade, and they're going to have to add it to your record.
Yeah, I think that comes from Ms. Zobe, but I could be wrong.
No, it's got to be her. It's got to be her. Yeah, she's the only person who can answer this. And we have Darden and Jane. Hi, guys.
Elizabeth's coming. She's just with the college counselors. She said she's on her way.
That was going to be my next question.
Yes.
Thank you for the reassurance. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can everyone see like a PowerPoint presentation? Oh,
Yep.
what I need. Okay. like with the title page, week 12A. Oops, today Tuesday. What am I doing? Okay, well, this is the last day of March. Welcome to spring, by the way. Did we have? Oh yeah, we've had classes since the vernal equinox. Okay, so I have 2:13, which is 5:13 your time for most of you. Is that about right? Is that what you have?
Yeah. More
Excellent.
or less.
Roughly, yep.
Okay, ahlan ya Maya. Okay. Okay, there we have Texas. Ahlan ya asdiqa. The only person we're missing right now is Oliver. So we'll just give Oliver a minute to join us, and then we will start. And there's Oliver. Ahlan ya Oliver.
Hey, how you doing?
How you doing? Good, very nice. Shukran jazilan. Ana kwayis. Ana jayyid. Good. All right, so this is the outline. Everyone can see the screen? Is there anyone who cannot see the screen, the presentation? Awesome. So we have announcements, then we're going to have a short quiz on numbers. Does everyone have a smartphone nearby or a scanner? Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so it's going to be really small. It's going to be 5 numbers I'll read, and then you get to write them. And it's not going to be worth 20 points. It's just going to be worth 5 points. Is that all right? If everyone does brilliantly, then I don't have any problem with making it worth 20 points, right? But since we haven't done a lot of numbers, we just looked at them last time, it's going to be worth a quarter of a normal quiz. Again, if everyone does brilliantly, then there's no problem. I can jack it up to 20 points. All right, then there's going to be our cartoon, our little cultural slice of culture, slice of life. Then homework review. Then we have a presentation by Darden on literature. And then we're going to look at some chapter 5 material, which are adverbs. And we've seen these again and again, like fa'alan, or aidan, or jiddan, right? And then we're going to look at a specific case, which the book says it's for depicting location in time and space, but it's actually really more general than that. But this is how the book eases you into it. No problem. We'll follow the book's lead. As far as the announcements go, are there any volunteer speakers for Thursday? Remember, this is extra credit. You're not expected to do this. I'll just add the points to your homework or quiz scores. Okay? In case someone decides to volunteer, just send me email. And then we all know there'll be a short quiz on numbers today. You will need a smartphone or a scanner nearby. And then I'm going to give you a take-home quiz on verbal sentences that we saw. There's still little minor glitches that you need to get a handle on. And that's going to take us to Sunday. And then all of next week, I should really add this on this. All of next week is going to be our second spring break.
Wait, second spring break. What?
Yeah, because next week we were off. We don't have class. We've already... So we won't have class. Is that a problem for anyone? Would that cause not having class? Would that cause a problem? Okay. All right. All right. Could someone read what's on the screen?
Al-Adad.
Jamil Jiddan. Al-A'dad. And we said last time, Al-A'dad is a broken plural, meaning numbers. Okay? All right, al-imtihan al-saghir, a small test. Write down the numbers you hear. Example, if I read to you, you're going to only hear me. You're not going to see the text. If I read to you, daba'un, what are you going to write down on your paper? You will write down
70.
70. Very nice. And I'll leave it to you, whichever numerals you want to use. But please do me a favor and don't mix and match. Either go with one system or the other. Thank you. Any questions? And there'll be 5 of these. Okay, is everyone ready? And everyone has their scanner nearby, right? Okay, here goes. Oops. Number 1. واحد وعشرون. واحد وعشرون. Number 2. أربعون. أربعون. Number 3. ثلاثة. تسعة عشر. تسعة عشر.
Excuse me, Mr. Niasi, are we still
Yes.
on 3?
Yes, that was number 3. I read number 3 twice. I'm reading him twice.
So was it Talasa Tesat Ashel?
I'm so sorry. No, number 3 was, I just said number 3 and then I said the 3 in
Oh.
Arabic. My bad. So number 3 is Tis'at Ashar. Thank you for that, Oliver. Number 3, Tis'at Ashar. Number 4, Khamsat Ashar. Khamsat Ashar. Number 5, اثنان وستون. اثنان وستون. Would you like to hear any of those 5 numbers again?
Could you just say them all just once more through, just to make sure I have the right order?
Sure. Number 1, واحد وعشرون. Number 2, أربعون. Number 3, تسعة عشر. Number 4, خمسة عشر. Number 5, اثنين وستون. Okay. And if you're done, could you just scan it and send it to my email, which you should have. But if not, I will put it for you here on the screen. Okay, has everyone transmitted theirs?
I'm still trying to on my phone right now.
Okay, that's fine.
Mr. Niazi, I just sent mine.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm missing 2. And the 2 that I'm missing that haven't come through the tube, the pipeline, are Pippa and Sawyer. Pippa, did you transmit yours?
Yeah, it said it sent, but I could try again, maybe.
Do you mind trying it again?
Not a problem.
Thank you.
I just sent mine.
Okay. Okay, there, Sawyer, I got yours. Awesome. Okay, and while we await our final transmission, so let's look at the cartoon for today. And I've taken the caption and I've enlarged it on the bottom. Could someone read it? Great, I got yours, Pippa, too. Wonderful. All right, who wants to read the caption for our cartoon?
The Al-Hiwar Al-Yamani?
جميل جدا. الحوار اليمني. الحوار اليمني. And hiwar, sorry, I shouldn't do that my R's. Hiwar is conversation. So what is al-hiwar al-Yemeni?
Yemen conversation.
Very close. What is al-Yemeni? Is it a noun or an adjective?
I thought it was an adjective.
It's an adjective. That's right. So yeah, in English we say Yemeni or Yemenite, somehow we need an adjective, right? So what kind of conversation is this? It's a
Yemeni conversation.
A Yemeni conversation. And what is Yemeni conversation? What is the figure?
It's a bloody sword.
That's right. It's a bloody dagger. These daggers, if you look at I don't know, National Geographic on Yemen, you can see these are the very characteristic daggers of Yemen, and you can see that it's blood soaked, and you can see that hiwar, which is conversation, is written on the thing itself. Very good.
Mr. Niazi, before we go too much further, we can't really see you. Your
there
camera,
we go.
You can see like the top of your,
There we
great,
go. That's a little. Okay, there we go. Appreciate it. All right. So now we go to our next slide, which is. So basically, this is presumably talking about the political troubles in Yemen, which, as you know, is now experiencing warfare. So that's what that is. Okay, now we're going to do homework review. one of the last points I made about al-jumla al-fa'liya last time was if your verb is to be, or if the verb relies on a preposition, do not look for a direct object. For instance, what is the verb yash'uru bi? Yash'uru bi. It was a new vocab. It's a chapter 5 vocab, meaning yash'uru bi is
to feel like?
Yeah, he feels like. He feels tired, he feels happy, he feels confused. Yash'uru bi, and that bi is a preposition. So whenever you have something separating your verb from your direct object like that, from this word that's you're thinking might be a direct object, it cannot be a direct object. It might be an indirect object, but it cannot be a direct object. And this is language dependent. Some verbs are transitive in one language and not in other languages, perhaps. But this is really, it makes your life easy, right? If you see your preposition preceding the word that you're tempted to designate as your direct object, you will immediately refrain from doing so. Okay? So yash'uru bi is intransitive, in other words. It doesn't take a direct object. All right, now we're going to do muraja'a wajib al-bayt, a review of homework. And we might not know muraji'ah or wajib, but we know al-bayt. What is bayt? Al-bayt? House or home, right? So this is a review of the requirements of the house, or what has been required to be accomplished in the house. Murajaat wajib al-bayt. So, and notice it's a compound idafa. All right. So who wants to read our first sentence, our first verbal sentence?
Which homework was this again?
This was the one you just turned in.
This is 511.
Well, 511, and there were two other sheets that I sent out. So this is one of the other sheets. And we're going to be repeating the verbals, but if you didn't get them, then send me email and I will get them to you. All right, who wants to read the sentence?
Ahib al I know this. Halawayat al Arabiya.
Very nice. Ahib al halawayat al Arabiya. Right? And what does this sentence mean, Yamaya?
I like Arab desserts.
Yeah. Arab sweets, Arab desserts. Yeah, very good. So now the question is, what is my verb? This is a verbal sentence. It starts with a verb. So the verb must be ohib.
Ohib.
Right? And then the question is, what is my subject? Who is the doer of this verb?
I. So Anna.
Anna, very nice. Sorry, so it is I. So I'm going to go here. Al-fa'il, which is the subject, is Ana, right? And then the question is, what is the direct object? And I like Arabic sweets or Arabic desserts. Well, it's the one with one line under it. So in this sentence, notice the subject it's implied in the verb itself. It's not spelled out in the sentence. And this is very common in Arabic sentences. And then, yes, the direct object, the receiver of the action of liking are those Arabic sweets. So that's your direct object. How about this one?
It's يسكنون في بلاد Canada.
جميل جدا. Beautifully read. يسكنون في بلد Canada. The question is, what is my verb?
يسكنون.
Yes, very nice. And then what is my subject? What is my al-fa'il, the doer of the action?
أنتم.
Antum would have been slightly different.
What is it?
Would be
Yeah, أنتم مدن تسكنون في بلد Canada. أنتم تسكنون. And for يسكنون with the ya at the beginning, it must be,
whom?
yes, it's home. Very nice. Right? So they, and what does this sentence mean? Sorry, ya Pippa. يسكنون في بلد Canada.
So we live in the country of Canada.
Very good, but the subject is still not right. It's home rather than نحن.
Oh, sorry. So it's they live in the country in Canada.
Very good. They live in the country of Canada, or they live in Canada. Very good. And then the question is, this is the $1 million question. Some of you got this wrong. What is the direct object in this sentence?
There isn't one, right? Because it's a preposition.
Yes, everyone sees the preposition fee, which is in, and we really haven't even discussed prepositions on their own, but you've been absorbing it. I'd be happy to present a slide on prepositions next time. But يسكنون في بلد Canada. The fact that the fee is there means that بلد Canada, which is what some of you marked as the direct object, is not the direct object, right? So there is no direct object in this sentence. You just have your verb, and then the doer, the subject, is implied in this يسكنون. Very good. How about this one? This also gave some people a little bit of problem. Who wants to read it?
Is it Tasamia Ukhti Ila Al Ukhna or Ukhbar?
Jamil jiddan. Yeah, that's a bit. The noon would have the dot on top, right? Very nice. تستمع أختي إلى الأخبار or إلى الأخبار. Very nice. What is the verb in this sentence, Ya Elizabeth?
Tastamia.
Yes. Yeah, تستمع. Very good. And then what is the direct object? Sorry, what is the subject? What is the doer?
That would be Hia.
Yes. Now, person and number-wise, that's correct. However, so this is going to be the rule in our class. Since we said last time that a very common form of verbal sentence has the verb followed immediately by the subject and then the direct object. In this case, if you see a word, this is just by agreement in our class, if you see a word after the verb that could serve as your subject by virtue of it agreeing in number, gender, what else is there? And person, yeah. Then choose that as your subject. So in this case, I'm claiming, what am I saying? What am I saying as far as the subject in this sentence must be? The subject must be?
My sister.
Yes, very good. Right? So what does the sentence translate to? تستمع أختي إلى الأخبار.
My sister listens to the news.
Very nice. My sister listens to the news, or my sister is listening to the news. Very good. And what is the direct object in this sentence?
Does the al act kind of like fi in the previous case, so we don't have one?
That's correct. The ila, listening to the news. In English, also listen is intransitive. So this is very similar. So تستمع أختي إلى الأخبار. The fact that ila is there before the al-akhbar means that al-akhbar cannot be your direct object. So this sentence does not have a direct object, okay? But the trick is this, and for this sentence, which is what threw people, is that if you have a word following your verb in a jumla fa'liya, in a verbal sentence, that could act as a subject by virtue of agreement in number, person, and gender, then go ahead and choose that as your subject, all right? In a jumla fi'liya, in a verbal sentence, all right? For the purposes of this class. Now, am I going to make this claim that this is 100% foolproof in all the classical Arabic texts you find? I'm not sure I'm willing to make that claim right now, but it's pretty ironclad, and I'd say let's go with that for our class, okay? And as you know, Arabic is a very rich language, and so yeah, maybe some prose stylists out in the 11th century, he may have played with this a little bit. But for our purposes, if you have tastami' ukhti, always translated as my sister is listening, right? Rather than she is listening to my sister, rather than picking ukhti as your direct object. Okay, very good. We'll do one more of these, and then we're going to go to our presentation by Darden. Who wants to read this one? I can read it. Taktub or taktubu walidati rasail telefonia. And rasail might give you a little bit of a problem, even though we've seen it. Rasail is a broken plural for risala. It means message, right? So messages, right? So what does this sentence translate? Who wants to translate? Taktub walidati rasail telefonia.
Doesn't that mean mother write sort of telephone messages?
Yeah, but could you do it in better
English? Or my mother writes telephone messages?
Yes, that's the correct translation. So my mother writes, or my mother is writing telephone messages, right? Meaning, presumably, this is the word for text, right? Taktubu walidati rasail telefonia. Very nicely done. So what is the verb in this sentence?
Taktub.
Yes, it's a verbal sentence. It starts with the verb, taktub. And then the question is, what is the doer? What is the doer? What is the subject?
والدتي.
جميل جدا, right? الفاعل والدتي. And he said, so if this word that follows the verb, if it matches in person, number, and gender and all that with the verb, if it could be the subject, choose it as your subject. My mother writes, or my mother is writing telephone messages. Very nice. And then I guess the question is there a direct object in this sentence? Al-maf'ul would be Arabic for direct object.
Isn't it risala telefonia?
Yeah, risala will be singular, but in this case, rasail telefonia.
Or sorry, risala.
Right, rasail telefonia in this case. And notice you don't have to worry about a preposition. There is none in this sentence. And the text messages are receiving the they are receiving the action of writing. So in this case, that's your direct object, okay? Are there any questions? It could be confusing, but I mean, most of you got most of the homework right. So we'll keep practicing. But no questions off the bat? Okay. Well, if not, then we are going to let's look at the presentation by Darden. Can everyone see this presentation? Excellent.
Okay, so I did
famous works of Arabic literature, kind of an overview of Arabic literature, which the more I researched it, turned out to be kind of a complicated subject. But anyways, can we go to the next slide? Next slide. To kind of give a better understanding of, like, whenever I say complicated, of why it was complicated, it's because there's basically pre-Islamic literature and then post-Islamic literature. And the 4th through 7th centuries were really the medieval golden age of poetry. This is really whenever Arabic literature kind of had its golden age. And that was also the Umayyad period. And then with the introduction of Islam and during the Abbasid period, really the influence of, like, Persian influence and the influence of the Quran led to people stopped focusing on other types of literature and just started focusing on the study of the Quran. And then Shubaya was the name of the conflict which took place, which for some reason was supposed to be underneath modern period, but it's okay.
Okay.
All right. And then the modern period, which is 19th century, late 18th century, was called Al-Nahda, which was, like, to refer to the revival of Arabic literature. And Spain was really the Western center of Arabic culture at this time. Western center, I should say. And we saw, like, the emergence of printed media, like newspapers and journalism and things like that. And novels and dramas began being produced, and authors had way more ability to express themselves. And, okay, so can we go to the next one?
Okay, if I may interject, and the reason I do this is because the timeline is a little glitchy. But just be aware. So the Umayyad period, just so you're all aware, the Umayyad period should go after the introduction of Islam. Okay. Okay. So this is important because after Islam came, there was the period of the rightly guided caliphs after the Prophet passed away, and then there was the first dynasty of Islam was the Umayyad. So I would just add Umayyad there, right? And then the Umayyads, of course, were followed by the Abbasids. And then the Shu'ubiyya, I would leave it where it is because, in fact, that was... and then I'd get rid of medieval because medieval, first of all, it's kind of a questionable word. But the golden age of Arabic lyric poetry, though, it's interesting, though. What Darden says, it's very interesting because she's put it before Islam, and there's that's part of the fascination of Arabic literature. So we'll talk about this. But just to review this, make sure that you guys know that the Umayyad period happened after the introduction of Islam, okay? I'm trying to make this bigger, but it's not going to do it. All right. Very nice. So now we're going to go, and then the Shu'ubiyya would in fact be a pre-modern event. So we're going to leave that. Is that good? Very good. All right. So now we're going to go to the next slide.
So I did kind of the notable genres, and there's nonfiction, which was manuals, diaries, etc. Then there's poetry, which was called saj, which kind of the early meaning of it meant the cooing of a dove, which, because poetry is beautiful to the ear and things like that. And it was always, And so basically pre-Islam, themes of poetry could range from, like, hymns of praise to bitter personal attacks, and then from religious and mystical ideas to poems on sex and wine, which obviously once the introduction of the Quran happened, things changed a little. And then fiction was they had a pretty weighty fiction. Epics like Sinbad, and there was the Mahkama, which was rhymed prose, and we'll go into that more. And then there's philosophy, and one second, sorry. Okay, and then there's science fiction, which is actually really interesting. It was Theologus Autodidactus, which is actually about a feral child that is born out of basically kind of synthesizes in a cave and lives isolated on an island. So that was an interesting one to read about. Okay, next slide.
Okay, sure. Yes, very good. The Arabic name is different. This is presumably some sort of Latin name, but we can look at the Arabic name. I'd be happy to bring it to class. But yes, there are all these different genres, as Darden says, very rich body of literature.
Okay, So pre-Islam was called the period of ignorance because, the Quran had not been introduced yet. And then a majority of these works were qasidas, which were very personal, short odes that, treated the situation of life. And they had themes of love, fighting, courage, and the chase. And the poet would speak directly to the reader and of the power of God and nature. And then they had poetry festivals, which I found pretty interesting during the 4th through 7th centuries, which were really popular. And they would basically be centered kind of around a war of verses between two poets, which, like I said, is kind of the modern equivalent of a rap battle. But the focus later shifted. And also this is during the time that the focus shifted from the repetition of traditional oral tales, and it got transferred into written works. All right, next slide. And then this is the Mu'allaqat, and in English it kind of it could translate to the suspended odes or the hanging poems, and they were called Mu'allaqat because they were written actually in gold, lettering, and they were hung in the Kaaba in Mecca, and they referred to as the Mu'allaqat because they were similar to precious gems, and you could hang in the wind that were meant to be silently appreciated. And it was a series of 7 poems that illustrated what Bedouin tribe life was like, which was interesting. And they were composed. It was by 6 or 7 different poets, but it was ultimately composed by Ahmad al-Rawiya. Next slide, please. And that was a pre-Islam work of literature.
Right. Excellent. So these 7 poems, each one of them gets a different poet, though. Each one of them has its own author.
Yes.
So, right. So the Hamad must have been one of those 7. Now, I'm not sure. I don't know the names of all 7, just like I didn't know the names of all the Emirates, but there's some famous ones. So Hamad is presumably one of the 7. Okay, very nice. But this Mu'allaqat, of course, everyone traces the beginning of Arabic culture to these Mu'allaqat. Arabic literature. Very nice. Arabic poetry, I should say. Very good.
All right, next slide, if you don't mind. Okay, so obviously the Quran, which was really considered the first major work of Arabic literature, it's still to this day the most notable and the most influential. And after it was introduced, it became the main source of study and things like that. And its literary style was actually derivative of Saj, which conflicted with the Islamic doctrine of Ijaz, which in Pippa's presentation, she talked about how it was against the Quran's beliefs to reproduce, human figures or anything. So they considered somehow poets and the likes of that found their way in this category. So they had to kind of go around that. And it has 114 chapters or surahs assembled from longest to shortest, which I didn't know that, but I thought that was interesting. And the content of these passages is focused more on the significance of Islamic history rather than the recounting of it. And God speaks in first person in the Quran, and another one of the principles of it cannot be translated or modified. Obviously it has, because to fit today's, and it must stay in its Arabic form. But still to this day, it's one of the most widely produced pieces of Arabic language. All right, can I go to the next slide, please?
Did it not? Sorry, hang on. Is this right?
Yes. And then there's Al-Maqamat, which was written by Abu Muhammad al-Qasim ibn Ali al-Hariri, which is kind of a really long name. And it's made of 50 short stories. And one second, sorry. And basically, it's kind of, the title is self-explanatory because Maqamat means setting or settings for in Arabic. And it's centered on Abu Zayd, an old humorous man, or one analysis of it actually referred to him as an old rogue, and his actions while he travels. And basically he uses his wit and charm to make a living, and the entire 50 short stories are just stories of this. And I don't know if you guys know the importance of being earnest, but it's basically the Arabic, or the Eastern equivalent of The Importance of Being Earnest, because it features a lot of word plays and double entendres and things like that. And then
Great.
next slide.
And The Importance of Being Earnest being the play. It's a play, right? By
Yes.
I haven't seen it, but it's by. Does anyone know the author?
Ooh, I totally forgot the author. But...
That's all right. That's all right. We'll come back to it later. Okay. Now we go to the next slide. Yeah.
Next slide. Yeah. And then this is definitely more towards the modern end of things with its translations. 1001 Nights, or Kitab Alf Layla Wah Layla, sometimes known as Arabian Nights. This is more probably next to the popularity of the Quran. And it's a compilation of tales that take their inspiration from Arabic, Persian, Egyptian, and Mesopotamian background. And this really illustrated the influence of India and Persia over literature, Arabic literature specifically. And they're all framed, each of the tales is framed by the story of, I have really a lot of difficulty with their name, but it's Sherazade telling her husband, Shahir, a story every night to postpone her execution because it's so complicated. But yeah, basically they're all of the tales in the book are tales that she's telling to him. So yeah, that's it. That is
next one. One more.
I think the next one is my bibliography.
Your bibliography, okay. Great. Well, let's have a round of applause for Darden. Great. And
by the way, the author of that play is Oscar Wilde.
Yes, Oscar Wilde, the Importance of Being Earnest. Thank you. So the Irish playwright. Yes. Has anyone seen that play? I have to say I've never seen it.
We've performed it here before. Our school has.
Yeah.
I'm not a theater person, but
I had an opportunity to see it when I was in New York, but I didn't see it. All right. I should at least see it, watch a movie or watch a movie of it, a film. Okay. All right, let's have questions for Darden.
Darden, what is your favorite work of Arabic literature?
Probably the last one, 1001 Nights. So,
do you have a favorite story in that?
No, just my favorite one.
So, do you have any idea? Oh,
sorry, go ahead.
Do you have any idea how much 1001 Nights might have changed over time as it's been revised and edited, or whether stories have been added or adapted at all, depending on the audience?
I think over time, definitely it's probably been edited for more of a, because it was really at its popularity in the 17th century, so it's probably edited for more, to cater more to that group of the time, but I'm sure it's been edited a lot throughout its translations. It's had probably thousands of translations. So, yeah.
And also, if I could just add my 2 cents, the form of the story, as Darden mentioned, is it's framed by this Scheherazade and Shahyar story. Though neither of those names is Arabic, by the way. But yeah, Scheherazade and Shahyar frame the outer story, and then there are all these embedded inner stories which often have stories embedded within them. A character in one story starts telling a story, right? So it's really a this sort of opportunity for people to insert stories left and right. And so there's a huge amount of scholarship done to try and come up with the original set of stories that would have been been for the early versions of this. And it's a very early text. I don't know when it was most popular, but it would have been. It's been around at least since the I'd say the 10th century CE, at least. Okay, so that was a good question. And incidentally, Scheherazade and Shahyar, what language are those from?
Are they French? Maybe.
Is Scheherazade
no, because we're saying,
Persian?
Yes, it's Persian. They're both Persian. Shahzad and Shahyar are both Persian names, and in fact, you have.
Yeah, Shah comes from Shahirar, or vice versa. So, sorry, I forgot to mention that because he's the king in the story.
Yeah, I think the etymology might be different from what you're proposing, but certainly Shah is Persian, Shahriyar is Persian, and Shahrazad is also Persian. And in English, that's Scheherazade. Yeah, very famous set of stories that give us Sinbad and a bunch of others, Sinbad the Sailor, and a bunch of other stories that are very popular all over the world. And as Darden mentioned, they showed the influence of all the different cultures that were subsumed by the Islamic world and gave it its richness and its many wonderful qualities. Okay, very good question. Let's have more questions.
Is there the same kind of sort of gender, like most old literature in the English language is written by men? Is it the same way with Arabic literature, or?
Oh yeah, 100%, because basically you only really see the introduction of female authors probably in the late 19th century. And that's pushing it. I would even say it was probably 20th century that female authors actually came around. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good question, right? As in Western literature, the majority of the authors until very recently were men, right? And this is true of Islamic civilization as well. And of course, it's changing, but probably not changing fast enough. But this is something we should bear in mind, that the authors were principally men. Very good question. What do you notice?
Sorry,
go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, what did the first I suppose Arabs used to write on? Did they just get technology for paper from other civilizations, like Egypt and the papyrus, or what exactly did they use?
I would probably imagine something similar to the papyrus. That's a really good question. But yeah. I don't know. They had gold ink, so no telling what they wrote on.
It's a really good question. And then both of you mentioned Egypt. Egypt, of course, is right next door to Arabia, to the Arabian Peninsula. It lies across the Red Sea. So, a large amount of contact. And the Egyptians, the ancient Egyptians, are the people who gave the world paper, And so some of it would have been paper. What other material could they have used? What other material do you know of, say, in medieval European culture that people used to...
calfskin, or the skin of an animal.
Vellum, that's right. Calfskin, yes. They could write on skin. That's right. Since I mentioned to you the museum show, The Roads of Arabia, you have to also realize that the entire country is covered with monuments consisting of people etching their poems and other announcements on the rock.
To interject, sorry.
Go ahead, Art.
Sorry, interjecting. The top right-hand picture is actually a picture of Quran scripture engraved in marble. Sorry.
Yeah. Do you know which monument this is?
I actually don't. I can go back and find.
Sure. What about the middle? What about the middle image? That's a very canonical image.
That's a picture of Muhammad, the Prophet Muhammad, receiving one of his first revelations from Gabriel. So.
Excellent, right? So we all know the story of how Muhammad received the revelations. Does anyone know the story? Well, he was 40 years old. Yeah, go ahead, Adam.
Didn't he go up to a cave in the desert to ponder and to sort of think? And there he received these revelations, and then he came back and sort of started a circle of followers, and then he was driven out of town, went to a different city, gathered a bunch of people, came back and besieged that city.
Yes, that's exactly right. So he was from Mecca, of course, which is the holiest city in Islam. And as Adam told us, he would go out into the mountains, into the hills surrounding Mecca. There's, in fact, the name of the cave is Hira. And you can Google it. You can Google it. It's it actually is kind of a letdown. But you can who knows if the cave that today is revered as Hira is the cave of the story. But as Adam says, he was pensive, and he would go and meditate in this cave. And at some point, he had his first revelation, and the story goes that he was petrified. He was very, very afraid, and then he confided to his wife Khadija who was supportive. And then, as Adam said, he developed his small group of followers, but was driven out of Mecca. And he went to, where did he go? He went to
Medina.
Medina, the second holiest city, the second holy city of Islam. Medina simply means what? Medina. Medina in Arabic means
City.
city, and it's shortened for Medinat an-Nabi, the city of the Prophet. It was called that because the people of Medina, which used to be called Yathrib, welcomed the Prophet with open arms when his own kinsmen were trying to kill him. And then he developed enough power to be able to come back to Mecca and to take over that city. Yes, so the picture you have is a medieval depiction of the angel Gabriel relaying the revelations to the prophet. Very good.
The right hand inscription, I just remembered, it's a picture of, and I forgot what the mosque was named, but it's in New Delhi in India.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, very nice. And then, of course, the bottom image shows one of the surahs of the Quran, it must be. Very good. And then let's see, the mu'allaqat. The mu'allaqat, of course, yes. The thing about the mu'allaqat, of course, the scholarship, if you talk to people, it's probably not 4th to 7th century, but it's closer to 7th century. And we talked about Bedouin culture last time. Who are the Bedouin? The Bedouin.
They are a nomadic tribe.
That's right. So even though I made the claim that the Arabian Peninsula was populated with sedentary cultures, a large part of it was populated by the nomadic people. And these were the only people who could traverse these vast deserts by virtue of the fact that they had domesticated the camel, and they could, they just adapted their living to living in the desert. And these mu'allaqat poems all arise from this Bedouin culture, which is always considered beautiful language as one of the hallmarks of its culture. And then we should move on, but since Darden mentioned saj'a, it's a sin, jim, ain, and that's really rhymed prose. So the poetry is always considered the highest form of literature in Arabic until very recently, and then the prose often resembles poetry in that it's metered and it's rhymed. And then, of course, the big accusation against the prophet was that he was not receiving revelations from Gabriel, but that he was merely what? That he was merely
repeating tasks. Okay, Maya, you got it. Go for it, Maya.
Right. But he was
dehydrated, maybe.
Right. Right. I mean, no. But as far as the Quran goes, the claim was that he was just merely a poet, and Arabia was filled with poets. This is what Bedouin did. They would sit around the campfire and they would recite poetry, and they would, this was their cultural production. This was their pride and joy. And then, of course, Muhammad had to contend with this accusation of being merely a poet. And so he does that. I believe even in the Quran it happens in some of the verses, and he rejects that. Very nice. Let's have another round of applause for Darden. Okay. Yeah, I mean, since Maya mentioned dehydration, I have to say I was walking.
I shouldn't have mentioned dehydration.
The thing is, it's interesting. I've mentioned this in another class. I was walking in the Sinai once, and it may have been dehydration, but you look at the cliffs, and they all started receding in this really hallucinatory way. And I thought, the Holy Land, and it's not just Egypt and Arabia, but up into the Levant, it's generally a dry, arid people, and this arid place, and this is the small bit of earth that's given so many cultures, so many different prophets. And at any rate, I was almost having an out-of-body experience myself in the Sinai Desert. Okay, so that having been said, let us go back to Let's go back to Jumla Fi'liya. So if your verb is to be, you know, in these equational sentences like the weather is nice or even the weather was nice, you're not going to look for a direct object. Also, if there's a preposition, you're not going to look for a direct object. What does the verb ya'kul mean? Ya'kul.
Is it he eats?
That's right. Very nice. He eats. He is eating. Is this a transitive verb or an intransitive? Do you expect it to get a direct object or no?
You would expect it to have a direct object.
Ya'kul al-lahm. He's eating meat. So al-lahm would be your direct object. What about yahfad? What is that verb?
Is that to memorize?
Yes, very nice. To preserve, but also to memorize. In our book, we see memorize. Very nice. So would you expect this to be transitive or intransitive? Would it have a direct object or no?
Possibly.
Yeah, it does. Like he memorized the book. Yahfad al-kitab, right? And yahfadu al-kitab. Yahfadu al-kitab would be al-kitab would be your direct object. He is memorizing the book. What about Yusafir ila? Oops, did I skip one? No, yeah, Yusafir ila, to travel to someplace. That's intransitive. And what's the big clue?
The ila?
The ila, the preposition, right? So you're not going to bother looking for a direct object once these prepositions are there. All right, now we're going to do, gosh, so this was actually today's lesson. We're going to do adverbs, right? You've seen many examples of these adverbs. Who wants to read the first one?
Jidda.
Jiddan, very nice. What about the second one?
Daiman.
Daiman, Jamil Jiddan. What about the last one?
Is it fi'lan?
Fi'lan, very nice. So these are all adverbs. Jiddan means what?
Very.
Very, right? And then Daiman means constantly. Fi'lan means truly. What about these two?
Well, I know the second one is sometimes.
Right, ahyanan. And the first one, jayyidan, which means well as an adverb, right? So just this is incidentally in your book. So this is on page 102 or thereabouts, right? In case you want to read it on your own. But some notes, bear in mind that the new nation is not always going to be indicated. Sometimes you just get a bare alif and it's at near the end of the sentence and you say, aha, this is my adverb. The other thing is some adverbs such as adatan, which means customarily, and bata marbuta, and so they don't get the alif. Right, so be aware of that. And then the adverb jiddan is unusual that you want to put it at the very end of a sentence, okay? So these are some notes that you could look at. And these are, this is page 104 and 105 of the book. It's a really short section. You can easily read it. All right. I was going to ask you to make sentences with these, but we're going to have to assign the homework before it's too late. Sorry. Okay. What? Sorry. That's not right. That must be it. All right. Your homework is this. Your homework, I can't seem to find the page. It's going to be to do exercise 17. This is on page 105. It's going to be exercise 17 on page 105. This is for Thursday. And also, look at your fi'liya sentences. Look at your verbal sentences. Just make sure that you, oh, here we go. So chapter 5, exercise 17, page 105, review your verbal sentence assignment in preparation for take-home quiz on Thursday. It's not going to be a big deal quiz at all, but you should look at it. If there are questions, send me. And then finally, before I leave you, I believe it was Adam. He said, well, how are al-jaw and al-taqs different? And my answer apparently was incorrect. I told you al-jaw is more spoken than formal. And then from the horse's mouth, my friend who actually teaches Arabic or Arabic literature on the East Coast, and he's a native speaker, he said they are both fusha, so they are both considered as formal, one as formal as the other, and they both have their funny usage in Amiya, in the spoken. The main difference is what? Is that taqs is specifically used for weather, but al-jaw is more general with several meanings related to air and atmosphere. Okay? So this is just FYI. If you're talking about the weather, you can use both interchangeably. They both have the same register of sort of authority of fusha versus amiya. Okay? Very nice. So you have your homework for Thursday, and are there any questions? Excellent. If not, have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Mr. Niazi.
Thank you.
Thank
You too.
Thank you.
Thanks.